this is the official synth from Seven Deadly Synths. This is the Envy synth. This was based on one of the Juno models that Austin can tell you because I don't remember.
106.
Juno 106, which was from like the 70s or 80s. Pretty classic synthesizer. I think it was used in some pretty famous compositions. But there was a reason I know that Austin chose this as the Envy synth inspiration, because all of the Seven Deadly Synths, including the two officially that you see in the film and then the others that are just implied, are all based on actual synths that exist, and they all have kind of a reason for why they are based on those particular models. Like the Gluttony synth is a big synth in from the 1900s. What's it called?
Harmonium?
That's what I thought. Yeah, harmonium. Big harmonium, because it's huge and it can't be moved, and it's just like very overabundant. And that was one of the first synthesizers back in the 20th century. And then you have the Wrath synth, which is a briefcase synth, and it was made to look like, like a nuclear, the big red button, right? Because it represents war and wrath, and that's kind of where that's coming from. So this was originally a Casio keyboard, and I think it was my Casio keyboard, wasn't it? Yeah, it was my Casio keyboard. Sorry, Mom. This is the Casio that you bought me when I was 13, and I've had all these years. But Austin actually has a nicer Casio, so I figure if we already have one, then this one can be spared for the cause. So, hey, at least you can hear the boss with the Blue Yeti. There you go. You'll be ready to go when I'm done. So this was actually a full keyboard. On the Juno, there are like knobs and stuff on this like section, but that was covered up for the sake of it being a synth. Then you have the full keyboard, and then the coverage here and all of your sliders. The sliders were a very remarkable part of the Juno. This was kind of the part that makes it this model. And actually, I think that this is Roland, right?
Yeah.
Roland synthesizers really like these sliders. They you see that a lot on Rolands. So the way I did this, and I can maybe post like I have like work in progress pictures on like I have work in progress pictures for this. I might post them on Twitter. But basically, this is Worbla. This is a thermoplastic. Cosplayers out there who've ever done armor or anything like that might be familiar with it. It is not the most easy material to work with. It comes in these very rigid sheets. This one already came in the color of black. I went ahead and got black Worbla so I would save time on painting and stuff. And because painting Worbla is a huge pain. You gotta like sand it and prime it and all this stuff. So I went ahead with black Worbla, and basically what you have to do is you got to get a heat gun, and you got to get it really, really hot, and it becomes like this very like floppy putty, consistency. It's very hot, but when it cools, it dries hard. So you only have a little bit of like little window of time to put it where you want to put it, and it sticks to itself really badly. So if it flops in the wrong direction, it sticks to itself in the wrong way. You can kind of see that some of it got like folded over, which isn't really quite right. But for the most part, it came out okay. All things considered, like the fact that this was a keyboard and that this came out so smooth is pretty remarkable. The way that I made it so smooth is that if you've ever done cosplay armor with Worbla, you know that craft foam is kind of a good base to put Worbla on. It's very smooth, it's very flat. So in order to like flatten all the buttons and stuff that were on the Casio originally, I put craft foam over all of it to make a smooth surface to put the Worbla on. So the buttons and all this came second. This is actually a second layer of Worbla that there's like a second layer here, and then all of these slots were cut into the Worbla when it was hot. Or actually, no, on the base layer of Warbler, I put the base of the sliders. And these, they stick up. I can't go all the way over here, but I can pull one of these off maybe and show you. Yeah, so these guys, that's what they look like originally. So I put that on top of the base layer of the Warbler. Then I layered this second layer of Warbler over this and made room and sliced a hole for these to go down. That was very, very difficult because I was trying to cut a piece of Warbler that would go into this section but would also line up perfectly with these 3 slots. And I had to do it without actually seeing it. So I basically would get it hot, layer it over, kind of poke these through the holes and just hope for the best, and then put these markers on later. And you know, the white line is very remarkable of Roland. These are actually, this was interesting. These would normally light up on a synthesizer, but for the sake of the prop, that would be way too hard. But these are actually ceramic, like mosaic tiles. I found these at AC Moore, I think. They came in these variety of colors, but I think I got like, you know, purple and blue and stuff too. I just didn't use them. And all I did was I layered another layer of Warbler. I cut into it when it was hot, pulled out the Warbler, and then kind of dug these in and folded it over to make it look like they're embedded. So they're not buttons at all. They're just like ceramic tiles. This is a vinyl sticker. You can find sticky vinyl at AC Moore. A lot of people use it for like wicking, I guess, like those little vinyl die cut printer things. I can't remember. My mom actually probably in the chat knows, like when you get the little roll vinyl that has the sticky back. That's all this is. And then the NV6 on the end here, this is like I can't pull that far. Oh, wait, no, I can. Yeah, we can go this far.
Pull it out.
The NV6 here, that is just like sticky letters, like scrapbook letters that you can find from like AC Moore or whatever as well. And then you have the lines here that are drawn in Sharpie. I wish that we had had access to a fine tip Sharpie at the time. Unfortunately, all we had was a normal Sharpie, so that doesn't look quite right, but we worked with what we had. And then you have like more buttons over here. And this is wrapped all the way pretty much around. The back of it's a little messed up looking.
We had a metal plate on the back.
We did have a metal plate on the back for a while. And then the other synth design that we actually have is over here in his like synth area. Let's see. Move the Yeti back up here. Actually, I guess both of these technically are. Although one of them we didn't have at the time. This gold one is G5. That's Greed. This is a Korg MS-20, which typically comes with a keyboard. Austin took the keyboard off. He disassembled this thing almost completely, I think, in order to paint it, right?
Yeah.
Took off all the knobs, completely re-knobbed it with gold knobs. And I think these knobs are re-knobbed as well. Mm-hmm. All of the labels on it were made by Austin. So if you actually Google Korg MS-20, this looks very, very different than what they typically do. But the whole idea is that Greed would be a golden synthesizer. So this played really well in the film. This is actually on screen. And why the MS-20 for Greed?
So the MS-20 has what's called an envelope follower.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like it grabs other synthesizers and you can play them through it.
Mm.
So it just completely like eats up everything. It stands out above everything else. It's very shrill. There's stuff like that.
It's a greedy synth.
Although the original inspiration for it was the Moog Voyager had a very limited release where the knobs were made out of Swarovski crystals. The thing was dipped in gold.
Oh my god.
It's absolutely extravagant.
Opulent.
So that was kind of the original, like, oh, that's, what if we dipped it in gold?
Yeah, March, it is very, very different. Why remove the keyboard? I can't remember why we did that.
I really wanted it to be the MS-50.
Ah.
Instead.
Mm.
And it doesn't have a keyboard, but they're basically the same
So
thing.
this is how we basically faked that it was a different type of Korg.
Yeah.
All right. And then this one appears modular synth, right?
Yeah.
I think this is sort of custom made, right?
No.
No, you bought it secondhand. That's right. It's got a little. It's got a handle on it because it actually has, like, if you can see the buckles, it has like a cover that can go on it and it can be held like a briefcase. This is similar to what the Wrath synth was. This didn't make it into the film. We didn't have this at the time. And actually we had all the parts to make the prop for the Wrath synth and it was going to be really cool. We just ran out of time. And
I would have preferred an EMS synthy, but those are like impossible to get.
And the Sloth was going to be the Yamaha CS80?
Yeah.
CS80, which is the Blade Runner synth Vangelis used. The thing about that one is very, very, very expensive. It is incredibly expensive. And actually, I think difficult to come by at this point. But the whole thing about the CS80 is that it's a bear to use. It is very, very unwieldy and very difficult to maintain. If you Google the inside of that, you can see. Well, I don't know where to put this. Hi. I'm just gonna put it here for now, I guess. I'll open up. Okay, we're crooked, but that's okay. Yeah. So the CS80. If you Google the inside of a CS80. It's a disaster. Like, it is so many wires and stuff, and if one of them breaks, good luck fixing it. So the idea of Sloth was that it's always broken, and you always buy it thinking that you'll fix it, and then you never get around to it and do. And it just gets passed from person to person, collects dust, because everybody says that they're going to fix it, and nobody ever does. So it's big, and it's, like, very difficult to maintain, so that was Sloth. Lust was sort of on screen. That's Greg's moment in the film. I can't remember I don't think we had a design for Lust in mind, did we?
I kind of assumed that it would be like a mini Moog.
Mini Moog, all right.
The very, very typical Moog that a lot of bands had at the time.
Hey, come on back.
Okay.
Now you can hear the bwah-bwahs.
Bwah, bwah, bwah. Yeah, so we still good? All right. Yes, I stepped away and we went from 39 people to 60 people because everybody loves Michelle. And things started to work. All right. So, God. Yeah, let's go back to bwah time. I kind of want to go back to the beginning of bwah time because y'all didn't get to learn how the synthesizers make the synthesizer noises. And let's just check. I think that's a little quiet. So...
It's a little quiet.
Do any of these... There we go.
It's good.
All right. We got to have some race car noises. So, back to what I was saying about how filters work.
Put up the math.
The meth? Put up the meth? What?
The math.
The math. She'll change things and I don't know how to get it back to how it was. Guys.
If you've ever wanted to be a GoPro.
There we go. That's good enough. Math. I deleted my display capture. The display capture is this one. And we say OK. And we say we don't want recursive vision. We say OK. And then we say, maybe let's not show everything on my computer. Hey, there we go. God, it's dusty. All right. Saw waves. See? Yay, saw waves. Filter out the saw waves. Add a little bit of resonance so we can see what we're doing. And you can see how the saw wave looks basically like how the math does. And then we add some bass because it sounds better with bass. Seven Deadly Synths is coming out in August 22nd. Anyway, that's your saw waves, square waves, which, I mean, we could look at the square wave functions there. We'll take the bass out because we don't. So you can see it's not a perfect square wave mathematically, but that's because we kind of fudged the top end of that equation. The only way you could really do the whole thing is if you could predict the future in terms of the program on the computer, because you have to know what the math will be further down the equation than it actually generates. So until we invent time travel, you can't really have a perfect filter. But we can get pretty close. Sometimes we want to get less close because it's got more character. And now let's talk a little bit about the whole polyphony and monophony thing.
You're just giving them the vocabulary to understand what everything Seth talks about in the movie.
Yeah, pretty much. Mono. I can hit as many keys as I want, but you're only going to hear one. Poly. We get chords and stuff. There's also triangle waves. They're kind of just not as fun to play with to me because they sound a lot like sine waves anyway. But the thing that is fun to do with triangles that you don't really get as much with other things is called wave folding. Where you can take your tips and kind of just shove them in until they... That gives you a little bit more of a bit more of that metallic sort of sound. Yeah, fold those waves.
Shove those tips.
Yep. And then where it really gets fun is when you start mixing them together. that's kind of like a folded saw wave with a triangle on there. So that's the fun stuff. Now, I wanted to explain envelopes, and because I want to explain envelopes, I'm gonna explain envelopes. So we're taking a trip from the Korg mini log, and we're heading toward the Novation Peak. Now, Michelle was telling you earlier about those sliders that were on the Rollins, and I wish I could do this a little bit better, but that's going to be the amp envelope, so that's kind of what we want to look at. Oh god, no, sorry again, guys. I'm so sorry. There we go. So, we've got attack, decay, sustain, release. We're going to go to an initialized patch. We're going to make a bunch of saw waves here. We're going to put the sustain up. And
That sounds hungry.
that's you, isn't it? That's the Moog. Settings. You are on channel 2, track 2, scale. And there we go. Back to basically a saw wave, basically. So the idea of the envelopes, sustain is volume, attack is when you hit the key, you can hear it takes a while to get to the top volume. Decay will be coming up, shooting past the volume, and then coming back down. And then release, when I let go of the key, it kind of continues and fades away. And one of the things that kills me the most on most computer-based, I think I'm a synthesizer musician, but I really didn't bother learning anything about it, and I'm just using the clips from the internet, is people don't have any release on anything. So it always just cuts out like that, and that's just not, that doesn't sound right to me. I hear something making noises somewhere, and I don't know what it is, but we're just going to deal with it. So, that is very basics of envelopes. And then you can go to mod and set that to do stuff with the filter. So you can basically use that same sort of envelope theory with either the volume or the amplitude, however you want to look at it, or with the other effects, And with this particular synthesizer, you can route them pretty much anywhere you want to go with them. But, I mean, we got the two there. I really, like, it's driving me crazy here. Because, okay. See, I'm making all of these like hand gestures and you guys can't see it, so I feel like, what am I doing? We gotta fix that. So, here we go. If I'm gonna like be making hand moves, you gotta see them.
Do you want me to, or do you know how to adjust the focus on your A-cam?
Not at all.
Oh, I can fix that for you.
You're gonna get in the way.
I can do it while you're doing.
All right. So let's see. That was filters, envelopes, oscillators. What else do we want to talk about, Michelle? Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I don't know the first thing about synthesizers.
A lot of people like velocity, which is if you hit the thing quietly, you get less impact from the noise. Or you can hit it really hard. And that does things too.
That's better. That's gonna be stuck on that, but there you go. Now you can see the words.
All right, now I'm gonna move the camera.
Well.
So that's fun. Now, there are cases where you don't want to have too much release on your envelope, particularly when you're doing certain sorts of like chords. You don't always want them to get muddled together, so that's a thing. So let's see. As far as other instruments go, I really like using the Moog Sub Fatty, which is there. You don't need the sticker.
You could show them your synth tambourine just offhandedly.
I'm gonna. All right. There we go. There we go, guys. So, I wanted to show you the envelopes on the Peak because the Peak has nice sliders and it's easy to visualize. Over here, though, they're all knobs, and that's not uncommon. So I'm looking over here to see if I can do something. I think I might be able to. So you guys want to know how to make the best bwahs? You start off with a Moog. Oh, this is also something while we're over here. One of the reasons why we like mono synths for leads and things is because we can adjust the like glide on it. Sometimes they call it portamento. And you can just sort of like get that like sliding up into the next note without it resetting all of the envelopes and the filters and everything. It's just a... So, cover of, do a cover, Phantom, and do special release. Yeah, sure, why not? We can do that, why not? You know, This is gonna be a little bit tricky, and sorry for keep bumping in the mic, the camera. So. I might have to use a different instrument for that bwah tutorial, but basically what you do is take that and then you want to feed it into some reverb, because the bwah needs that reverb to fill in all of the like little spaces. And I have a really good reverb over here, so maybe I just plug that in. How about that? Now this guy, I'm bumping things and I'm hoping it doesn't make too much noise. This guy, he's over here, is mostly an effects unit with a little bit of a synth built in. He's kind of new and very few people have him, so he's still getting updates that probably gonna take a while before you can really get all of the use out of this guy.
That's one of the recent things that just showed up on the door.
It did just show up on the door. That's what doors are for. Play around a little bit with the Yep, just kind of play around with things until it does what you want it to do is how it goes. So we go to the reverb. I've lost everything. All right. So basically, yeah, just throwing some reverb in. And you can get all sorts of like really cool things. This is a really like, you plug in this synth, it's got a little weird sort of sequencer you can build into it where you can type in notes manually by moving the sliders, and then you can change the probability of if those notes actually hit. And you just sort of like plug that in, put your headphones on, and just sit there and let the like world be quiet because you're listening to the echoey synth world instead of the dog barking next door. Now this guy's really important for you guys to understand for one joke in Seven Deadly Synths. It's the Stylophone. Stylophone is a really cheap synthesizer.
And for $25, you can have your own synthesizer delivered straight to your door.
Probably closer to 50, but you don't usually tell Michelle that.
That's not what I paid.
So yeah, these are still sold on Amazon. They're not terribly expensive, and if you find them at the right time, you can get them actually pretty cheap. They've got most of your basics for synthesizers on them, which, in my opinion, makes them far more worth it than, say, the Otomatones. Because these guys are fun, but they have batteries that run out.
Jax, Austin has like 7 Otomatones, not
Yeah.
just one.
Yeah, I got several of those things. They're it's a problem actually. I got too many of them. But this one's kind of cute. So, like, they're cute and they're fun and they got a little slider thing, but the Stylophone's also got a slider and it's got all of the other adjustments that you could probably want for a basic purpose. You've got the filter on it. It doesn't have very good envelopes, but it has envelopes. And it's even got a little delay unit on it so you can get sort of the reverbs on it. You could essentially make a little bwah noise out of it. And it's got an adjustment thing on the back so you can go into the really low notes and make it sound good. So the Stylophone is probably a better way of spending the same amount of money that you're going to spend if you're going to get a Otomatone. All right. I wonder if I can play this guy. Huh. Of course, we have the synth lute, the Q chord.
Are you going to use the synth lute for composing the film?
I very seriously doubt it. And y'all have seen me play with this before, but one of the cool things I wanted to show off a little bit of was that it's currently plugged into the Greed synth, the MS-20. And if I turn the volume down here, turn the volume up here, and the only problem is I think Michelle might have turned a knob when she was messing with something over there. Oh no, that's not the only problem. There's a few problems. So I can strum this guy, but I need to keep the thing open.
Just put a paperweight on it.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I could probably keep, like, drop something on there, but anyway, I could make it sound better. I just have to play around with where the patch cables go, and that would take a while, and I just have to, like, I don't think that would be very fun to watch me plug stuff in, unplug stuff, turn knobs all day, unless that was really what everybody was hoping to get out of it.
Tambourine, tambourine.
Michelle wants to see that the...
I mean, I don't remember that one showing up. So when did that get here?
I was quiet about that one.
Oh my god.
All right. So this is the Zoom Arc 48. Michelle knows Zoom, right? You know Zoomy. You no longer need to be plugged in. So we're gonna plug you into here. And it's weird seeing myself from multiple angles like that. There's an on
Synth
button.
Roomba? I love that.
Power. I don't know. Did I unplug you accidentally? Kind of. Yeah, see, I'm bumping a button.
Oh, it's got colors.
Yeah, it's got colors.
Oh my god.
It's connected. And it's got gyroscope in it.
This is officially the silliest thing I've ever bought. This is a big...
You can hear that I'm controlling the bass on it a little bit.
They want to know how much this was and where you found it.
I don't know if I want to disclose that information.
Oh my god, Austin.
It was under $100, I'll say that. And I found it on Gear for Music because they are selling it at 80% discount. Because it's actually over $350. So I paid less than $350.
Wait,
but
less than 300.
I paid less than 100.
Okay.
I paid less than 100 for this. But you could easily pay over $350 for it. But it's a really cool device. It's got gyroscopes in it, so you can control like some of the effects on there.
I haven't seen it. Beat it. Nothing.
It depends on what you're doing.
I feel like I've been teleported back to 1998.
It's a little quiet, which is why it's kind of hard to show what happens when you hit it. Yeah, so it's what I've been kind of calling the hippie cyberpunk dubstep tambourine. It's fun, and that's kind of the point. And as a sort of excuse that I've made up for myself, I think it would be useful in music therapy because there's like you could do all sorts of stuff with it. It's a kind of intuitive based device that you don't know what's going to come out of it, but it's going to be good. And that's all we really want. We want some fun. But yeah, it's fun. If we go to some other things. It's got some. Ooh.
I think that should be the lust synth.
Could be pride.
Could be pride.
But yeah, it can record itself. It can do other stuff. It's like you just sort of like build a whole song around it, and people stare at you like you're crazy. The more serious version that is basically for the same thing, the same essential purpose, is this is the more serious version, which I thought you guys could hear when I was as my pre-roll.
Oh, we're gonna slow it down into some sexy R&B times, huh?
Yeah.
I've also still been teleported back to 1998.
Yeah. And then we can go to stuff like... Stop. This is my... But that's basically the, it's a all-in-one sort of device. It's got some built-in synthesizers. It can be plugged into my synthesizers and it'll run a program through them where it samples everything out of the synthesizer, so I can kind of carry around my noises with me just without all the knobs and the buttons and things. So if I really wanted like a Moog instrument, but I needed to like run around with it, I couldn't bring this guy with me all the time, but I can pretty much fit that in a backpack, and it's all self-contained. So that's kind of the cool thing about that. It
Synths on a plane.
Synths on a plane, Michelle says. Yes, yes. You can actually even go in and like it's got a full like DAW built into it, which some people don't really care for that sort of thing, but you don't have to use it. It's just there, so if you make mistakes, you can kind of manually correct them. It's one of the more useful things in my collection.
What is your opinion on kalimbas?
Kalimbas are little plucky toys. They're cool though. You can get some of them that have inputs so that you can record them into your computers and stuff, and then you throw on your reverbs, and that's all you... Honestly, if it comes down to it, all you need is to make a noise and then filter out some sounds and throw reverb on it, and computers can do all of that, so... I mean, I hate to say it, but you don't need all of this.
Oh, really?
I need all of this.
Uh-huh.
But it's not as a gatekeeper sort of thing. There's nothing stopping you from going out there. It's just like when Michelle told me she wanted something that sounded like a Moog, I kind of needed a Moog, right? She wonders.
I made a Moog noise in response.
Mrr. I mean, you could do that. You could go mrr into a microphone, throw it through some reverb. I was actually doing that with I don't have it plugged in. You've heard the noises that come out of the thing we sing with on Twitch Sings. You can do all sorts of stuff with just that if you really put your mind to it and were clever and had a sense of rhythm that I don't have, and that's really where everything comes down to for me, is I need a machine to keep the beat for me. Hopefully they can teach that as a skill. I wanted to show off this guy, but I don't know how I'm gonna do it with how everything else is set up.
Sluckus is asking how many synths do you have? 7?
How do you want to count them?
1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 6.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll call that 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 if you want to get stretchy with it. 13 maybe. I mean, do we count synth flute? I kind of count synth flute.
Yeah, synth flute counts, but I don't think the sax counts, right? Or the keytar.
The keytar doesn't count.
Yeah, those are controllers. Those don't count. And the mixers don't count.
Yeah, the mixers don't count. And I'm not counting all of the Otomatones.
Oh, and I forgot, yeah, your drum machine's not out. So, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then bass line is 7. Yeah, I know, 7 definite synths, 1 synth lute, which brings it up to 8, and I don't know, and what, the tambourine would be 9?
It's got synths built into it with knobs, so I kind of count it. It's a digital synth.
What's the other 4?
I don't know if you counted the Typhon here.
I didn't. That's the effect. Yeah, that counts.
This is definitely a synthesizer.
I counted the bass.
I don't know how to... Camera, come on. Look at me. This guy is 2 Sega Genesis chips that are being controlled through a lot of sliders to make an FM synth, and it sounds like a jazzy sort of piano instrument. So that's definitely a synthesizer. It's digital, but it's a FM synthesizer built on the Sega Genesis engine. And this guy's sort of similar, but you can draw out the waveforms on that one, and it sounds very much like a Nintendo, old school Nintendo noises.
Yeah, I literally lost count at this point. They just show up.
Yeah. And I, to be like clear, I really spend a lot of time when I probably should be working, looking for the best deals on these things. Like, they come up on Reverb, on Guitar Centers, used instruments. Like, that Vostok, the big, like, modular guy over there, that can run up to $5,000, but I didn't pay anywhere near that. Like, at all. But it's just sometimes people... I was right at the beginning of the pandemic, and I kind of was like... Somebody felt the need to get money quickly, and I felt the need to have the synthesizer. So I got it, because the resale value on that, I would double my money if I just sold it used again. Not that I ever plan on really selling it, but if I had to, I mean, for any reason, that's basically an investment piece.
They're mentioning in the chat DE, but everyone speaks in bwah. Well, that's why you have all the Otomatones.
Yeah, that's exactly why I have all the Otomatones, is we were going to dress them up as DE characters and make them go wah, 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 wah. Excuse me? What are you doing? So that's what people usually think of when they think of like synthesizers, and that's just not fair. That's a very basic, like, that cheesy noises aren't what makes a synthesizer a synthesizer. That's just a recording on a chip that's got a really cheap speaker on it, and that's, you can't judge synthesizers based on that. Speaking of cheap synthesizer utilities, though, this is the keyboard that came with Guitar Hero, or whatever, the Rock Band 3, I guess. And someone asked me, why would you want a keytar? It makes it so you can only play the piano with one hand. And that's because if you're playing monophonic, you only want one hand. If most synthesizers, if you go over like 4 notes at a time, it's just like impossible to tell what's going on. Everything gets muddled up. But also the hand side here, it's hard to see, but there's a button here and a touchpad. So this is to control extra things like vibrato and maybe the filter cut off, stuff like that. Which, I see a lot of Pillow yes, Arden yes. What are people talking about?
Pillow says Detroit Eve Otomatone.
But yeah, it's mostly for the fact that you can get modulation into your piano tones that you just can't get on a piano. So, like, they've got their purpose. Everything's got its purpose. It's just a lot of the things get to their like very specific purpose, and that's not everybody needs a very specific purpose. I really want to show off this guy though. It's gonna take a second. I will use...
One day Austin will get another desk. When we get in a bigger house.
I need this guy. So I'm plugging in that to there and this into here. This is going to go down here for now. And this. Oops. I'll plug into here. I'll turn it back on. So what we've got here is an FM synthesizer, where your the Moog and all these other ones are mostly subtractive synthesizers. You filter out frequencies to get the sounds you want. This is the opposite. I just need to find something loud enough. Basically, it's got individual waves that you add onto each other using these algorithms. And by doing that, you make more complex things. So your waves are adding together and modulating each other instead of taking a complex waveform that you filter down. I wish it was a little bit louder, but I'm kind of taking it out of the stereo headphones, and that just doesn't really work as well. So it's kind of a different way of doing things. It's adding the waves in a way that would be different than if we were adding the waves for the other instruments, because those you would take the waves, like if you had two oscillators, they mix together at the audio rate, where this is mixing together before it goes into the audio rate, and there's a difference in like linear and exponential mixing, and all of this sort of gets complicated and in the weeds. But the real purpose of FM comes down to, it gives you that metallic like tines, like you can get the vibraphone sort of noises out of it, but you're still in the synthesizer world, so it's control over these sounds that you normally don't get much of a control over. Like you can hit a xylophone or a glockenspiel or whatever, and you're going to get the same sort of pinging noises out of it. But with the FM synthesizers, you can adjust your... Basically, it's just a bunch of envelopes like we were talking about earlier. A bunch of different attacks, decays, sustains, releases, and you're controlling each of those oscillators going in through one sound source. And what you end up with is just a full control over, like if you had a glockenspiel, but now you have a glockenspiel, but you want it to ring more in a certain frequency. So it gives you this, like, it's a perfect jazz instrument. It's really what Yamaha's DX7 was really popular for. And if you think of 90s television commercials, that vaporwave noise, that's completely where that's coming from, that just tonal ringing. But this is a little bit more gritty. It's using the Genesis sound chips, so I just like it because it has more character than maybe your typical FM synthesizer. So I kind of need to do some updates on it. It really needs to be plugged in through an audio interface instead of being plugged straight into headphone jacks. It needs some treatments that I'm not giving it right now to really show it off, but I hope that it gets a good bit of use in the next couple projects too. So, we talked about FM, filters, things. I'd like to talk more about the modular stuff, but it really would kind of be better if I just did that on my own time and then edited a bit of the video, because me plugging things in and plugging things out with this particular sound setup would be noisy and probably not everybody's favorite experience. At least we talked about two of the actual Deadly Synths that were in the movie. What else is there, Michelle? Anything you want to throw in there?
Watch Seven Deadly Synths on August 22nd on YouTube.
Yeah, watch Seven Deadly Synths on YouTube on August 22nd. And I'm going to put this right here. And I'm going to actually read some of the questions. If anybody has questions, to type them into the chat box now for me to answer them, because I haven't been paying a lot of attention to it. So we've got about 30 minutes left in the stream, but we can end it early if there's no more questions. I like to think that I showed you a kind of basics of synthesizers.
What's beeping?
It's still making noises somewhere, but I don't... All right. Q&A time. What got me into synths? Mostly I was trying to make weird noises using a fretless guitar, and a magnetic exciter on the strings to get the drone noises, and then I was plugging it into amp and going through other things, and it wasn't doing what I wanted it to do, so I kept trying to do more and more things to it. But eventually it was kind of like, why don't you just use synthesizers if you're trying to make synthesizer noises? And a big part of that was psychoacoustics. I wanted to get some of those actual like binaural audio effects. And the way I was doing it was going into the computer and changing the volume or changing the tuning slightly between the left and the right track. And it was a little bit of a weird way of doing all of the things I was trying to do. And then I got a synthesizer and I was like, oh my god, I've been making my life so difficult by trying to do things in a real instrument sort of way. And like I had done so much math on trying to make these audio effects work out, and then I got a synthesizer and I was like, oh, I could just like move a dial a little bit. So yeah, synthesizers are a great tool when they're the tool that you're trying to use, and guitars aren't great synthesizers if you're trying to be a synthesizer. That's the real answer there. As far as synthesizers being self-taught, I'm pretty much self-taught with the synthesizer. I did have a piano class in high school, but I didn't really learn as much as I probably should have. My music background, I was in middle school and high school band and studied a lot of music theory with the saxophone specifically. So, like, the music background's not completely self-taught. I've gone to guitar classes when I was in kindergarten and stuff like that, and it's just sort of always been there. But with the synthesizers, I would say I'm pretty much self-taught. I've looked up stuff on YouTube to get ideas. There's a lot of resources out there. I spent a solid year just completely reading everything on the synthesizer Reddit and basically just consuming everything that there was about it. So that's, I mean, technically it's self-taught. I didn't have a specific teacher, but there's always resources available to find that sort of information out. And then you get like stuck on this one thing of like, well, how does that work? And then you dig down into it. And I kind of think that's where you find passion is when it's not satisfying enough just to make it work, but you need to know how it works. So you really dig in, maybe more than other people would. My favorite parts of composing scores is usually just picking out the tones that I'm going to use. I spend a lot of time on that, and I think that's probably the most fun part, honestly. And afterwards, I try to force those tones into what the plan is. But it's also fun just to like come up with rhythms and mix things into it and sort of trial and error the types of sounds that you think will work with it. Sometimes you already know the sounds that you want to use, so you don't have to find them. Eden asked if I have favorites. I don't like to tell them which ones are my favorites. Mostly because I'm really at the place of everything has its purpose. And like my Moog is my favorite for the Moog sounds, making really big bwahs and that earth-shaking sort of bass noises. The Peak is my favorite for making sound design. I really like the filters on the Korg MS-20, which has a similar filter to the Vostok, which is right above it. They're actually pretty similar, and I think it's really cool that they can be plugged in together and use each other's oscillators and filters and stuff. And then the MS-20, also you can plug in other instruments and route it through the synthesizer, it'll try to do its best at matching the pitches and the times that you hit the beat. So I didn't really like Roland's drum machine, which is funny because everybody loves Roland's drum machine's sound, but I found the workflow to be really hard. So I have the sounds all programmed into the newer drum machine that I was showing earlier, and I'm kind of happier with doing it that way. So it's hard for me to say I've got a favorite, but it's more of like if something really doesn't work with me, it quickly becomes my least favorite. All right. My next synth on my wish list. I'm pretty happy right now. Michelle's happy to hear that, I think. It's not like I would turn down any synthesizers. There's some things that are being like worked on right now that I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. And I would kind of like to have more units for the modular synthesizer. There's some like tools and stuff, but it's just not, I don't need it. I like things that aren't modular a little bit more, generally speaking, because you can kind of just turn them on and make them do what you want. So there's nothing really coming out that, like, there's better versions of some of these instruments that, like, they'd be nice to have, but I have what I need, and that's kind of, it's a good place to be. Explain the process of naming my synths. They're a lot of it comes down to how would I explain to Michelle which one's which. So I sometimes call the sub-fatty like the bwah synth, and like I call the Q chord the synth lute because it's I guess it's more like a auto harp than a lute, but regardless, it's designed more in that sense than the traditional synthesizer, so that's kind of where those sort of names come from. And the thing about it being a tambourine is like it makes noises and it's shaped like a ring, so therefore it's a tambourine. Something that a lot of people would maybe disagree with is I don't really go after really old synthesizers because they're a pain to keep up, and as we progress in technology in general, the pieces that are in them, even though they're really basic, like transistors and capacitors and stuff, they get harder and harder to get at a consumer level. So I don't really like worrying about the upkeep. I'd rather get something that fills that same purpose without it being really old. Whose sounds inspire me the most? I really get into the, like, AWOL Nation. They use synthesizers in a really cool way. I don't even know if they think about it the same sort of way as I would, but it's they've got some fun noises. And then really it's mostly you put the headphones on and some noises you like, some noises you don't. I don't like Curtis filters, which a lot of people like because they're familiar with the Prophet series of synthesizers, but they don't sing out to me. The Moog has ladder filters. Everybody loves the Moog ladder filters, but I've got one synth with a Moog ladder filter, and I don't really care to have another one because they sound sleepy to me. There's just, I don't know. I like the MS-20's filters because they are shrill, they're strong, they have attack, and stuff like that. Let's see. Any goals to achieve? I'd kind of like to do some covers of other like famous pieces, but in non-typical ways using synthesizers and stuff. I'd like to talk more about patching and making sounds, but you kind of have to build that into an idea. It's not something that I can just jump on Twitch, on a scheduled Twitch that is on Michelle's channel, and occupy hours of just like filming me making one particular bwah noise and hoping that everybody likes it. That's just kind of silly. Do I have a favorite sound to make? It's hard. I mean, I cannot explain what sound I like to make. But with this new Typhon here, it's, you have so many like effect units in there. It's really nice just to get something that's strong, but it feels like putting on a weighted blanket, but for your ears. So that's kind of just like I'm vibing noise. And then the other thing that I tend to like to do is I like octave jumps, and it's fun to use things other than keyboards. Like these grid pads are fun to use instead of the keyboards, just because they got more squish to them. They feel like you're just pushing yourself into the instrument instead of tapping on the keys. I think Detroit Awakening probably had the best like synth patching in it. I stretched the mini log the most for livestream, but that was really a resource dependent sort of thing. DE, I kind of copied what I did for Detroit Awakening, so it's just more of it, and I started using instruments other than synths in DE, so it's got a little bit more depth, but it wasn't as much of a make the noises as find the right noises movie. So yeah, I think I'm gonna end the stream there. Thanks for dealing with our technical difficulties. Lion's got one more question. I'll answer that one. I kind of hope to write and release my own songs that aren't OSTs, but I think I need to start on moving toward the music therapy direction. I don't have the like task switching in me right now to go from working in a lab with a bunch of chemicals and math and all of that sort of stuff. It's just a completely different sort of transition to come home, and it's such an exhausting job because I don't always like the environment and the stuff that's going on in it. So when I come home, I'm kind of exhausted, and I don't really have the mental inspiration or strength to work on music a lot of the time, especially creative music where all of that stuff. So yeah, hopefully in the future. So yeah, guys, thanks for coming. Thanks for dealing with our technical difficulties at the end. I really have no idea why the music wasn't coming through. It said it was, and I thought that people were hearing things because they were saying things, but apparently that was a lawnmower. And I think Joe was also doing sound design in the background and assumed that her sound design was part of my stream, and that was kind of when I see confirmation, I kind of just go with it. So
I think people just like saying bwah.
yeah, people do like saying bwah, even when it's just a visual bwah. So oh yeah, sorry, we're just closing up. Thanks again, everybody. Stay great, hydrate. Does Michelle want to say anything else?
Come to Apu on Monday.
Come to Apu on Monday, because that's where you're going to find out all of the actual useful information. Watch Synths on Octopunk Media's YouTube on the 22nd. All that stuff. Drink water. It's,
be good.
It's the,
Drink water, be good. Lemonhead sign off.
which is kind of like Seth Meyers' sign off these days.
Wear a fucking mask.
Wear a mask. Stay inside. It's scary out there. Something's dark and full of terrors. I don't know. Thank you, everybody.